Hey, what's happening everybody? I'm Tarafdar, back with a brand new video. Today is Saturday and you guys know that today's finance talk. My topic today is going to be on a winning formula to help you get into a decision you want to make, particularly in the areas of investment. If you're looking to go into an area of finding a deal or putting money into something that will eventually grow. So I think that a lot of people in this space, if they're considering making an investment, if they're considering buying a product or service, what they do is they kind of like hesitate for multiple reasons, right? And I think that it's fair to say that those hesitations are well-founded. But before you actually, take your natural instincts and your gut feelings and basically your experiences from the past to basically delay you from a potential opportunity, delay you from getting the outcome you want, what you want to do is you want to consider a couple elements. Now, this winning formula that I'm about to share with you is essentially something that I personally use. I tell my clients to use, I tell my investors, I tell my partners and associates to use. And the reason why it's so critical is because it actually gives you a deeper understanding of the actual item or product or service or investment that you're looking into. And it forces you to kind of look through a logical perspective instead of an emotional perspective. And unfortunately, a lot of us have come from an emotional background when it comes to making decisions, whether it be with money or let's say partnerships, or whether it be into making a purchase that's a major purchase for us. For instance, a lot of people will buy a home just because they want to bring their family into a good environment. They want to move the neighborhood. They want to basically give their children the opportunity to grow up feeling like they're not deprived of anything. And technically speaking, that's a very good thing. Internally for yourself, the morale of it, for the family, for the well-being of your family. But what you have to look at is deeper on a financial level. Whether that be a good thing for your morale and your emotional needs, it may not be the best for your financial or logical needs. And I think the biggest thing that to this conversation is going to go with is the idea of making logical choices and decisions. The idea of driving a thought and decision, whether it be investing or buying or purchasing a major product or service, with the idea of using logic. And specifically using the 4 different quadrants of logic that we're going to talk about. So we break this down as EUAD. EUAD. E essentially means, UEAD. UEAD essentially means understanding. So when you look at a product, service, or an investment, are you familiar with it? That's the space that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about education. Once you understand it, can you educate yourself further on it? Are there resources online or let's say offline that you can take your time to really look into? The A stands for analysis, right? Like analysis is essentially, okay, based on the understanding that you got, the education that you have now, what are some of the things that you can analyze about the potential deal or transaction or whatever it is that you try to get into? And ultimately, D stands for decision. So again, that's UEAD. So understanding, education, analysis, and decision. And essentially, those are the 4 quadrants of a winning formula for when it comes to making a decision in investment, financial purchases, things that will move your money from your pocket to the other side. And you have to think of that as an investment, right? If you think that you're spending money and you're not going to get it back, logically speaking, of course, that's not good mentally, because then you got emotional drives. You're going to say, well, did I make the right choice? Did I invest in the right thing? Did I spend my money and maybe I'm not going to see it back? Those are the type of emotional factors that are driving your decision, that are holding you up at night from sleeping, from getting peace of mind. But technically speaking, what you want to do is you want to achieve mental peace, and the only way to do that is you got to use logical thinking, right? The understanding of arbitrage mentally to go into your mind, and using that 4 quadrant of understanding for the winning formula, which again is U, which is understanding, E, education, A, analysis, and D is decision. So once again, that's UEAD. And that's going to be the core and topic of our discussion today. We're going to be really delving into that on a deeper level for many reasons. I think that whatever it is that you possibly have to do in the near future when it comes to buying, let's say a home, a car, whatever it is, a major purchase, whether it be a business even, or even let alone if you have a couple of $1,000s saved around and you're being invited to invest, or you're looking into investing, whether it be stocks or wherever it is you want to put your money. I think really, this 4 quadrant formula will give you a core understanding of the logical, drives behind making that decision. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with understanding, right? Understanding is essentially, whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to buy, whatever you're trying to invest in, how much of that do you understand on a very deep level? And sometimes, it requires you to kind of sit back before you even actually make that decision and look at it and say, well, is this something that I would do myself, right? Like, for example, if you're looking at, going into real estate. Most people want to do that. That's a very standard thing, but just to go on that, there's many different areas of real estate, right? So there's like the area of residential real estate, there's commercial real estate, there's alternative assets, there's storage spaces, there's land, raw land, development, there's foreign investments, there's lifestyle real estate. There's syndications that happen with investors who are accredited, by the way, in most cases. So there's a lot of different type of real estate assets. And when you're being invited into an opportunity and you're asked to make a decision on it, what's your understanding of that? Do you understand this particular type of real estate? And the best way, I think, for you to really kind of understand real estate is to educate yourself, right? So that's the next step. But before you start educating yourself, you should have a basic idea of what you're looking into it, right? And the basic idea should give you enough so that you're comfortably able to talk about it without feeling like you're lost. And in most cases, everybody knows real estate. Everybody knows our house has a roof, you got plumbing, you got electricals, you got the land, the lawn, you got the backyard, the front yard, all that goodies, right? You got the rooms, the kitchen, all that stuff. And these are the basic common terms in real estate that most people use. Now, if you kind of get that, if you understand the standard of it and the basic level, then you're ready for the second step. But let's assume that you don't understand it, right? Are you ready for the second step? And this is where you have to be very logical, not emotional, right? If you know for a fact you don't understand what's going on, if you know for a fact that it's not something that you can personally endorse or you would do yourself, then don't even make that purchase or, let's say, investment decision, right? So this is something that I would say is very critical. It's very, it's very, how do we say this, mandatory for your peace of mind long term. Because if you don't understand something and you make that decision regardless of educating yourself and going into it, keep in mind the best type of education is the experiential education. It's not the one that you're going to get based on theory, based on fundamentals, based on things that you don't know about. And unfortunately, fundamentals and theory do change over time. Transactions change over time, laws change over time, and the markets and the conditions of that market change over time. There's nothing that you can personally do to kind of hold control over those elements. The only thing you have control over is the decision for you to make by the end of this quadrant, to which is either you buy or you invest. So that's what you have to understand. If you do not get the concept of what you're getting into and you don't understand the basics of it, the fundamentals of it, there's no way in hell that you should even proceed to the educational side, because when it comes to decision making, that's going to be a very a huge factor that's going to weigh in. And one of the things I'm going to tell you is it's not that you should just ignore the whole thing altogether. You have the right to educate yourself past that point where you kind of put the decision on the side to go into it. But when it comes to your actual money leaving your pockets or your bank, you have to understand this is not the time to make an emotional decision and really, oh no, I'm going to learn about it, and educate myself. Like I said, the best type of education is the one that's experiential. So if you don't understand it on a very fundamental and basic level, don't even get to the part of education, because that's going to be a driving factor. You're going to be convinced, oh, I can educate myself. And it's going to take you a very huge learning curve, possibly a lot of ups and downs and a lot of stress that comes with it. And you don't want to do that to yourself. But on the plus side, if you do understand it, if you feel like, oh, this is something I can definitely do, then definitely, past that level of fundamental understanding, the basic core of understanding, you jump into the idea of education. This is where, let's say, we now go into the residential real estate thing. You understand what it is. Now you want to educate yourself on the actual opportunity. And you look at it and say, well, it's just a fix and flip. Do you understand the markets where you are? And are you educated in that? Do you know the taxes around that municipality, or let's say the county that you're in? Do you know the laws that bind that? What are some of the rules around that area? How are the markets in the past around that? And typically, most people would invest with their own money in real estate when it comes local. They'll look at foot on the ground where they are and just make an investment decision from that perspective. So, educating yourself around the actual deal, on the deal that's presented, whether it be on a purchase level or whether it be on an investment level, it's something that you have to do, and you have to really understand. What are the shortfalls of this? What can happen? What can possibly go wrong? So, past that, educational perspective, past that fact that, okay, you understand the foundations of it, you kind of are educated into it, and you're actually looking into the deal. What's the next step? And the next step is really called the analysis. So we moved from the first quadrant, which was understanding. So you understand it. Then we move to the educational quadrant. Now we're going to understand how to analyze that, how to analyze the deal. So first and foremost, when it comes to logical decisions and financial decisions to buy something or to invest in something, what we want to do is, if we put our money into this, what's the outcome we're hoping to achieve? And as Brian Tracy himself says, who's a famous author, by the way, you guys should know him, business coach and famous author Brian Tracy. He says a very simple way of looking at an investment. He says, how much in, how much out, how sure, how quick, right? So again, that's how much in, how much out, how sure, and how quick. And essentially what you're doing in your analysis is using those analogies, right? You're using those same questioning. So you're going to ask yourself, okay, how much am I supposed to put into this? How much am I getting out of it? How sure is this whole concept that we're actually going into, whether it be at a purchase level or a business investment level? And of course, how much time is this going to take for it to create the outcome that I desire or that I'm looking for, or whatever is promised? And those have to be very sound, right? They have to be very sound. If they're not sound, then you don't do it. For instance, if you're looking at a fix and flip, the markets are great. You did your understanding of the actual sector itself. You know it. You're familiarized with it. Now you educated yourself a little bit on the deal. Now you're analyzing it. You're essentially looking at it in the perspective of an investor, and the financial perspective, of course, to see if it logically makes sense for you to put your money out. And you feel that you have to put in, let's say, $100,000. That's how much in. You know that you're going to get like $150,000 if you do the right thing, including construction, whatever. Just metaphorical here. Now you know how much out is $150,000. How sure? Well, the team that's actually doing the construction have been doing this for about 7 to 10 years. The person who's actually presenting the deal has a very successful track record. They've been doing fix and flips. They have a portfolio of, let's say, 100 deals they've done in the last 5 years. They're very well reputed in their neighborhood. They join a lot of associations and events. They do a lot of sponsoring. So they're well known. They have a reputation to protect. Chances are they're not going to screw up this one, especially the fact that you yourself have taken the time to understand and educate yourself on the deal. And then they've presented it to you on a sound basis because they believe that, you can help them with taking this deal forward. So that's the next step. And then finally, you got to understand how much time is this going to take? So we answered how much in, $100,000, how much out, which is $150,000. How sure? Well, how sure is the due diligence part, right? It's really, okay, well, this person, we know who that person is. They're reputed, et cetera, et cetera. So we're pretty confident on the deal, right? And of course, there's protection clauses. How do you protect your money and all that good stuff? Now you go into the aspect of how much time, how soon. So let's say this fix and flip can take, I don't know, let's say 6 months, 90 days, 6 months, whatever it is. And for a fact, that's the time frame. And we asked that individual who's actually doing that business, what's your average flip time? What are some of the things that delayed it? And you go into the questioning phase. And once you understand that, okay, well, maybe it's going to take max 6 months, at best 3 months. Now we give ourselves reasonable expectations. Then that's what our analysis kind of deduces, that, okay, well, it's going to take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. We need 100,000. We're going to pull out 150, et cetera, et cetera. So now you've kind of moved into this phase of the final quadrant, right? So you kind of understand the market, the actual decision of investment or whatever purchase. You've educated yourself on it because you needed to kind of convince yourself or be conform with the idea of making that investment decision or purchase decision. And now you're in the phase of you've analyzed the deal and you use the Brian Tracy method of questioning. You said how much in, 100,000, how much out, 150, how sure. You do your due diligence. You know that this is a reputable team. You get your due diligence on how to protect your money. And then how soon or how fast is essentially, it can take between 90 to 180 days, which is basically, 3 to 6 months. Now you're in that final quadrant, which is the decision phase. From that logical breakdown of the 3 other quadrants, you can make a sound decision now, right? And the only thing that's holding you back from that decision is really your emotions. Right? Letting go of that money to go to work for you, letting go of that money to go and produce the income that you need to produce. And unfortunately, a lot of people get stuck in this phase. Even though they can have all the 3 other quadrants right, this one specific phase is holding them back from that decision that they want to make. And that's a very bad place to be. So, this is the place where you actually have to be confident in your decision. You have to take a deeper look and say, look, if my money is sitting around and it's not doing anything, I might as well just burn it. Because if it's not producing the income that you desire, your money is as good as nothing. It's essentially you keeping the same salary you have, and you might as well not have a savings account at all. And most people will say it's an emergency, and all that good stuff. But here's the thing: why should it be an emergency? Why do you want that to go into a cause of misery instead of a cause of greatness, right? People treat money as though it's a source of misery. to solve problems. It shouldn't be solving problems. Money should be making you money. More money is going to solve problems, not having less. So if you look at that decision phase, I want you to ask yourself, if I just keep this money here and just pass on this decision after all the time I've invested in myself to understand the deal, to educate myself on it, to analyze it the right way, why am I not pulling the trigger? Why am I not making the decision? What's holding me back? And really take your time to analyze that. And if it's just based on emotional things instead of logical decisions, then there's no way that you should basically hold yourself back from that deal. You got to ask yourself, well, if I came through this conclusion, then I definitely have to pull the trigger, because everything else just adds up, right? So opportunities don't always come knocking at your door. And right, when you want to build a relationship in the marketplace as an investor, somebody who's well known to do deals right, to go into partnerships, to do greater things and better things, you have to make decisions. Where indecision is going to hold you back from actually getting the right investor with like-minded individuals such yourself. Indecision is going to hold you back from potential opportunities and deals that can change your life. So again, I want to reiterate, this is really the winning formula. You got to understand the deal that you're getting yourself into. You got to educate yourself on it. You got to analyze it the right way. The Brian Tracy 4 questions, which are how much in, how much out, how sure, how quick, right? And then finally making that decision and making sure that you are actually making the decision based on a logical sequence, which by this quadrant, which is the fourth and final decision, fourth and final phase, the decision phase, you've already done what's logical. You've already taken the time to educate, understand, analyze, and then now you're just making the choice that you need to. All right. So that's really the winning formula. If you get that right, you're pretty much good to go. Unfortunately, a lot of people will get stuck whether in this first step, which is understanding, right? And they think, well, it's okay. I'll just put the money and I'll see what happens. And that's gambling. You might as well go to the casino or keep cash and just put a lighter on it and burn it. You're not in that space to take that kind of risk. You don't have billions of dollars sitting around. And even then, those people who are very conservative when it comes to decision making will take their sweet time to go through a deal, or have a group of people that will analyze the deal for them. But you as an individual, who are basically getting into the aspect of building wealth, we're getting into the aspect of looking at the long term and bigger picture. You can't afford to do that. So you have to use the 4 quadrants and the sequence in its exact order. You have to understand, you have to educate, you have to analyze, and then you have to make a logical, sound financial decision. Only then you'll move up the ladder of wealth. Only then you'll be able to feel more confident about your financial matters, in yourself and confidence, to make the right decisions when it comes to money and wealth. And of course, purchases and or looking at the bigger picture for the outcome that you want to create in your life. So, with that said and done, I hope you guys understand the 4 quadrants, and I'm going to once again break it down. You have the understanding phase, you have the education, the analysis, the decision, and all that should be very streamlined, right? So if you get stuck in any decision, okay, if you get stuck in the decision, maybe it's something happened, you looked at the deal the wrong way, maybe it's something that just you found out that person was actually doing this to transition from a good person into like a criminal empire or something. That's fine. But aside from those drastic sudden changes, the decision phase should technically be easy to do, especially if it's a logical and sound financial decision. So, and then of course the line of questioning on that analysis phase, we talked about Brian Tracy's 4 questions. We talked about how much in, how much out, how sure, how quick. And I think that's very key. When you understand that and you take your time on the actual analysis of the deal the right way, you'll find yourself more at peace with yourself. You kind of have a direction to take. And if you're not sure, of course, you can ask other professionals to help you. That's why people hire attorneys, people hire accountants. Not to say that their goal is to help you make decisions. The goal is to kind of hold you from understanding the critical elements of that decision, especially when you're putting a lot of money into something. So, that's the aspect of looking at a major transaction and or, let's say, investment. Now, most of you will probably ask you about what about credit repair? What about the things like that? Well, simple. Credit is, everybody understands that you need it. If you have a credit card, you understand credit. It's not a question of if it's something that you got to decide on. The aspect here is people come to credit repair because most of them are concerned that, look, I might have to borrow more, or I'm in the point in my life where I need to fix it because I want to move up. I want to bring my family into some sort of either a home, or I want to invest in real estate. That is something that you understand. The question is, you got to get educated on who's going to be helping you. Because if you want to do it yourself, you have the opportunity. My YouTube channel is entirely dedicated, well, at least for the most part, for the first part, right? Because my YouTube channel is going to be adding a lot of significant content over the capital raising elements, over financial planning, whether wealth building. Credit is a very important component of it. It's the tip of the iceberg. That's why we started with this in my channel journey. But when you look at that and you look at the decisions around that, you got to understand, look, If it's credit related stuff, it's not very complicated to make a decision on it. It's a question of whether you want your credit fixed, whether you need somebody to mentor you through the process where, you know, you start with something and by the time you're done your journey with that individual, you feel more confident, you understand exactly what was done, and you know how to kind of take it to the next level in terms of decision making of what you want to do with your credit and surrounding anything around your credit. So with that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And just to summarize one more time, the 4 stages of decision making, or let's say the winning formula for investing or by making a major purchase, are understanding, education, analysis, and decision. And keep in mind, during the analysis phase, you're asking yourself the 4 questions that Brian Tracy mentions. It's number 1, how much in? Number 2, how much out? Number 3, how sure, which is the due diligence side. And the final one is how quick, right? Or how fast. So once you get that, then you make the logical and sound financial decision. That's the 4 quadrants that I'm going to talk about, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope that you found value in this. And if you have any questions, talk@bestcreditresources.com. I'm opening to answer that. Based on what you guys learned today, leave a comment below and tell me which of those phases you had a hard time with when it comes to decision making, or let's say investment choices in the past. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share this video with those that you feel would benefit from the education that I just provided to you today. And most importantly, I think if you haven't subscribed to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Turn that bell icon on, because the notifications that you get from me are essentially of this same nature, for educational purposes, and of course to help you get the value that you need to move ahead in wealth and life. Okay, so this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafdar. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.